Hey there, race fans. It's Race Day Top 5 with me, Frank 5. Indianapolis Motor Speedway, one of the most prestigious racetracks in the world, pretty much the racing capital of the world. Home to the Indianapolis 500, one of the most prestigious races that we run on Memorial Day weekend, where we honor the men and women that have fallen while fighting for our country and seeing 33 of the world's fastest drivers in IndyCar ballot out for the Indy 500. In NASCAR, we battle on the famed Yard of Bricks, this time year 2 on the road course. And just like last year, an interesting race with a lot of chaos and an interesting finish. Let's talk about all that went down in the second annual Indianapolis Road Course race. Number 1, Tyler Reddick, dominant all weekend long, captures his second win of the season, his second ever road course win, I also want to add, at the Verizon 200 at the Brickyard, and a thrilling end to the race by holding off Austin Cindric, Harrison Burton, Todd Gilliland, and Bubba Wallace. Now that's an interesting top 5 right there. But Tyler Reddick, all weekend long, very fast car. From Saturday's session where he was strong in practice and won the pole for Sunday's race. And from the start, he took off to about a 1.5 to 2 second lead from the get-go. He was very, very strong. Then he went with pit strategy with his crew chief, Randall Burnett, by pitting, sacrificing stage points to put themselves for good track position towards the end of the race. And all day long, it seemed like there were times where they were trying to catch up, but they clearly had the best car all day long and all weekend long. They were strong. They battled up through the pack by passing some guys that were on different strategies from them, and they had to overcome a couple of late race restarts in the race. When a tire came apart from Christopher Bell with about 22 laps to go, it pretty much put the field back together and set up for an interesting restart. Well, Reddick held his position, held the lead. Then we had another late race yellow, which set up another restart. And then they were crashing and spinning right behind him, and he had to go through another restart. And on that restart, he took the lead cleanly, but then got a challenge out of nowhere by Ross Chastain. Now, that's a story we're going to talk about in a second, but in the end, Reddick was able to get by Chastain and hold all of them off for the win. And it's a really, really interesting, solid performance by Tyler Reddick and this A-team. Ever since his incredible win at Road America, passing one of the best in Chase Elliott on road courses to win his first ever Cup race, it was a big moment for him. It was a big moment for him to win at Indianapolis. When you win in Indianapolis, that win stays with you for the rest of your life, like the Daytona 500 does. Although the Daytona 500 is more prestigious for NASCAR than it is, Indianapolis. But still, you win at Indianapolis, it's something special to your resume as a race car driver. You won at the racing capital of the world. It's very, very special. And Tyler Reddick did all the right things yesterday to get his second win of the season. And of course, it's been big headlines for him recently. Of course, with the announcement that he is not going to be with Richard Childress Racing in 2024. He is shifting gears and moving over to 2311 Racing to drive which car we don't know. Might be the 45, because it sounds like next year will be the final year for Kurt Busch. But Richard Childress and Tyler Reddick, there has been talks about, with this announcement about Richard Childress was relatively upset about this decision of Reddick that he will not be with the team for the foreseeable future beginning in 2024. There were questions about, even though he said Tyler Reddick will be with us in 2023, was he really going to stay there? Because it's almost similar to the situation that Kevin Harvick had with Richard Childress Racing back in 2013, where he apparently, they had a handshake to stay with him and with him to stay till the team till like 2014, 2015. But then Harvick later in the year announced that he was jumping ship and going to Stewart-Haas Racing beginning in 2014. This is pretty similar to that. And Richard Childress, there's questions about, is it true that, would he even keep Tyler Reddick for 2023, or would they change gears and would they go with somebody else? Well, yesterday after the race, Richard Childress did announce that Tyler Reddick will drive the number 8 car for them next year in 2023. Honestly, I felt like it was perfectly suitable for Reddick to stay in the 8 car next year. I mean, he couldn't really go anywhere else, even though there's the talks about what's going to happen to Kyle Busch next year, even though it sounds like maybe we're getting closer to him signing with Joe Gibbs Racing for 2023 and maybe a few more years. But there was a lot of questions about that. But we now know that Reddick will stay with Richard Childress Racing next year. And this win built his bonus points to help him for the playoffs. I mean, Tyler Reddick's beginning to creep into the championship conversation, especially with the unpredictability of this next-gen car. Again, we could see Tyler Reddick mid-season announce that he's going to a new team in 2024, and he might be lifting the Bill France Cup at the end of the year in Phoenix. We don't know. We still have a long ways to go before the playoffs, but a very impressive win by Tyler Reddick and the A-team. Pats on the back to all those guys. They had a great car all weekend long. Number 2, Ross Chastain went for it, got penalized. So on the final restart of the race, Ross Chastain, who overcame early race adversity where he spun around and got damaged and they had to come to pit road, fix the damage, they fell a lap down, but they got their lap back by the end of the stage, worked their way back up to the field, a lot to process, I know. On the final restart, he was running in about the 6th position on the outside before they went into the sharp right-hander, 90-degree right-hander at turn 1. Chastain went a little far and had to use the runoff area at the Indy turn 4 section and resumed the racetrack. Well, when he resumed on the racetrack, he actually resumed as the race leader, and NASCAR said, if you exceed track limits, you have to give back positions. He did not do that whatsoever. He exceeded the track limits by taking the runoff area and rejoining as the leader, and NASCAR said, no, you have to get back those spots. He didn't. He was racing. He probably thought that those were the rules. Like, if you rejoin the track and you're in the front of those other guys that you pass, that you probably will be able to keep your position, but NASCAR said no. So they penalized Ross Chastain. Instead of finishing 2nd place, he ended up finishing 27th. And post-race, he was asked about that, and his response was kind of puzzling. But, I mean, it was a good bounce back from what happened at the beginning to at least have a chance at a good result, and maybe if things went their way, another win on a road course. But at the end of the day, it ends up being a penalized position of 27th. I felt like NASCAR made the right decision penalizing him. Exceeding track limits is unacceptable. It goes for NASCAR on the road courses. It's pretty much like the yellow line rule like at Daytona and Talladega. It's like a no-no for like NASCAR boundaries. If you pass below the double yellow line, advance your position, and you don't give it back, you're brought to pit road and serve a penalty. And for road courses, if you exceed the track limits, you have to come to a complete stop, or you have to use the runoff area, but let guys go by you as they're coming towards you. So it's kind of a, headache sometimes with these rules, but the rules are the rules. And Chastain, unfortunately, got the bad end of the penalty and loses a chance at a win or a top 5 result and sells for 27th place because of the penalty. But what are you going to do? The rules are the rules, and I'm not going to argue with that whatsoever. Number 3, rookies in the top 5. What? A rookie's not supposed to finish in the top 5 on a road course? Well, except for Austin Cindric, because he's a really good road course racer. Kind of was around the top 10 most of the day and was in the contention at the very end of the race by passing a couple guys. I think he was, 5th on the restart, and propelled himself all the way up to the 2nd position when Chastain was in front with Tyler Reddick, and Chastain was about to get ready to get penalized for that. Cindric was able to get up with a 2nd place finish. Since the summer months, Austin Cindric has kind of gotten a little bit of momentum and been running well lately. And remember, this race is without his crew chief, Jeremy Bullins. Jeremy Bullins is not with the 2-car for this race because of the penalty that they had at New Hampshire where they left pit road and they lost a tire, and that's a 4-race suspension. So for Cindric to do very well with the interim crew chief that he had, very impressive. And I mean, it's not a shock because Cindric is a really good road course racer. We've seen it in the Truck Series, we've seen it in the Xfinity Series, and we've seen it in the Cup Series. Yes, I know he hasn't won in a Cup road course race as a Cup driver yet, but it'll happen in the near future. And Cindric did a great job yesterday. Harrison Burton, however, I've liked this kid a lot. Although I question him moving up to the Cup Series this year because he didn't win a race in Xfinity a year ago. But lately, he's kind of gotten on some good runs. I mean, he had a good top 10 finish at Atlanta, where he ran pretty much there the entire day. New Hampshire was kind of a step back, and Pocono's Pocono. But yesterday, he kept his nose clean and ran top 15 pretty much the entire day. He lost his strike position, but got it back and worked his way up through the field with all the carnage on that last restart in overtime. He got himself a good 3rd place finish. And right behind him, Todd Gilliland, another rookie contender this year, new to Front Row Motorsports, who also had another good week at Atlanta a few weeks ago by leading a couple laps and got a top 20 out of it, gets his first career top 10, which happens to be a top 5. The last time 3 rookies finished inside the top 5, the previous rookie class that had 3 rookies in the top 5 featured a Burton, and that was Harrison's father, Jeff Burton. You know what? It's kind of fitting. Let's have 3 rookies finish in the top 5, and one of those is a Burton. It's common, isn't it? But a good run from all the rookies. Obviously, it's good for Cindric because he builds his more points above the cutoff, especially with the possibility that if we get more winners, Cindric could maybe be the odd man out if there's more than 16 winners, but I don't think that's the case after this run. Harrison Burton, Todd Gilliland need good runs because time's running out for them to try to maybe win to make the playoffs. If we don't get any new winners from here on out, that's not them. they've got to get some momentum, and they need it because they've had some struggles this year. But a good day for the rookie class on a road course, and that's very surprising. But again, not so much centered because of his road course expertise. Number 4, AJ Allmendinger. Wonderful on Saturday. Heat struggle, but a good run on Sunday. AJ Allmendinger, as we all know, a phenomenal road course racer. And he showcased that this weekend, especially with the Xfinity race on Saturday. Started on the pole, was the fastest car, ended up winning the race, and he celebrates like a maniac. Because he treats his wins like if it's the last time he's ever going to win. Even though the equipment he's driving, Xfinity, there's no way after this past Saturday's race, it's not his last win in NASCAR ever. I hope I don't jinx him by saying that, but I highly doubt it. And then on Sunday, trying to repeat what he did a year ago, winning that race for Colleague Racing, they had the speed in their car, especially from where they started in the race. Now, they got spun out in the middle part of the race and went off into the gravel, lost their track position, but then he quickly fought his way back up to the field because of his expertise and how good of a car he had. Well, during the race as well, AJ Allmendinger not only had to battle the competitors, he had to battle the heat in his car. His cooling system failed, and therefore he wasn't receiving air conditioning, he wasn't getting a whole lot of water into his fluids, so he was really exhausted. I mean, you could see in his onboard in the closing laps, he was literally hanging his head like this and like had his eyes kind of shut. He was really tired and exhausted through all that. Now, he had a chance to win that race, but in that final restart, he was pinned in with a couple of drivers, lost some spots, but was able to come out of that with a solid 7th place run, but had to be tended to medical officials afterwards. And on a mid 80-degree day, especially in Indianapolis this time of the year, you need all the fluids you can get, and you need a lot of water because it's hot and humid. But a good run for Allmendinger despite not being able to repeat his win a year ago, but it was a good weekend for him with a top 10, the win on Saturday, and more importantly, at the end of the day, he got not a lot of water and fluids to get his, help him cool and beat the heat. And number 5, Indianapolis Road Course Chaos, Part 2. There was so much chaos this year as much as there was last year. Now, this year, thankfully, we didn't have an incident at the inner part of the track with the curbing. Remember last year, closing stages of the race, a couple of drivers running over the curb section before the back straightaway on the inside portion of the track. A lot of guys went around and wrecked. And William Byron came in there and said the curbing came up. And NASCAR had to take a few minutes to repair that. It was a really bad look on Indianapolis and with the curbing incident. This year, they fixed it. There was no problems whatsoever. But guys were still wrecking and spinning all over the place because of these next-gen cars and how hard they are to drive. At the beginning of the race, we had guys spinning. As I mentioned, Ross Chastain, Denny Hamlin. Kevin Harvick got into incidents, and he retaliated against Alex Bowman thinking it was him that did it, but it really wasn't. And Bowman was an innocent victim for that. We had Kyle Larson, have problems. He got into Eric Almirola. Larson went 2 laps down. Almirola had to retire. And then later in the race, Kyle Larson lost his brakes going into turn 1 and door slammed Ty Dillon. Thankfully, both were okay, but that was a really hard crash at that amount of speed going into turn 1 at that sharp, slow speeds at 90-degree turn. It was really bad, but thankfully they were okay. And then the closing laps of the race, again, there were a lot of guys spinning around. William Byron got bumped into Ryan Blaney. It's turned him into Chase Elliott, and he spun around, ending his top 2 streak, but he was able to rebound and get 16th place out of it, and he still holds the point lead because Chastain did not get a good finish, and Ryan Blaney, who was on old tires in that final restart, running in the top 5, got spun by Daniel Suarez, and he had to settle for 26th place. And he retaliated at Suarez at the end of the race by spinning him, basically saying, I'm not putting up with that. There was so much chaos. Basically, the question is, was this a cleaner race than a year ago? I would say so, because there wasn't curbing incidents and a lot of chaos. Yet there was some chaos in this race with late race dive bomb moves and spins and crashes and all that. It begs the question, does NASCAR deserve to continue to run on the road course portion, or do we go back to the oval portion and run 400 miles, 160 laps? If you ask me, I go with the road course section. I mean, because it provides a lot of exciting entertainment. Whether some people don't like it or not, I happen to like it a lot because it provides excitement. Because the previous years with the oval, although the last oval race we had in 2020 and even the one in 2019, they were pretty solid races, and even 2018. But over the years, fan attendance in Indianapolis on the oval portion was just going down, and mostly it's because of the tire facade in 2008. But other than that, there was like people like, you just get spread out. You can't pass anymore unless if you got a fast hot rod and you're trying to rebound from a penalty, and you can pass guys like crazy. Yes, that's the case. So that's why we went with the road course section last year. It kind of worked for the entertainment with the exception of the curbing incident and a lot of guys getting wrecked out late. This year, no curbing incident, but still some chaos. NASCAR and IndyCar, obviously Indianapolis, did announce that they will run the road course portion in 2023 next year. The big question is 2024 in 2 years. Do we go back to the oval? That's a question that remains to be answered. I'm sure NASCAR and the owner of Indianapolis Motor Speedway, who happens to be a NASCAR IndyCar owner and an IndyCar team owner, Roger Penske, they'll talk about it and they'll discuss the future of NASCAR in Indianapolis for 2024. But next year, we're going back to the road course section. Like it or not, we're running it next year, and I think it's a good decision for the entertainment perspective, and it provides a lot of strategy as far as guys going to go for stage points or going for track position / the win. So you can say what you want, but the Indianapolis road course race this year provided some entertaining moments. It did provide a lot of chaos, but that's how road courses are sometimes. So now that we're done with Indianapolis road course, we are off to the Irish Hills of Michigan next weekend, and a track that last year had some pretty entertaining racing, which was the final race for the 550 package. This year was 670 package. I think we're in for a good show, and we're going to probably see a similar race that we saw at Auto Club this year. If you saw an Auto Club race, that was one of the best racing we've ever seen at Auto Club in a long, long time. I've got a good feeling about what we're going to see in Michigan this upcoming Sunday. The big stories entering this race. Is Chase Elliott going to get away from this one-off bad race of not getting the result and get his momentum back with a win to victory lane? Is Ryan Blaney, Martin Truex Jr., or Kevin Harvick going to punch their ticket to the playoffs with a win in Michigan? Remember, all three of these guys run well here. Harvick and Blaney in particular are former winners here. I don't think Truex has won here before. So Harvick is definitely a guy to watch for, especially considering his past success there. He's won a lot of races there in the past. He won there in 2018. He won there in 2019. He won there in 2020. He didn't win last year, but he was still strong. Ryan Blaney, he won the last Michigan race last year. I've got a good feeling about his chances to this race. So a lot of questions about those bubble guys. Which one will punch their ticket? Will one of them do it this upcoming Sunday, or will we have another repeat winner of 2022? We'll answer those at the Checker Flag next weekend. So hope you all have a wonderful week. Subscribe, like. Once again, congrats to Tyler Reddick and the number 8 team on their very impressive win at the Indy Road Course. Have a wonderful week, everybody. Let's go racing!